Good morning, my name is Miss Katy, and today we're going to do a lesson geared towards 1st through 2nd grade. We're at King's Art Center, and let's get started. So we have a couple different materials. We have a watercolor set, an eraser, pencil, paintbrushes, container of water, paper towel, some table salt, just whatever you have at home will be fine. And we've got some different round objects. These can be anything you have in your home. I'm going to use a quarter, probably the bottom of this cup, probably this bucket, and that should be good. We want just some different sizes of round things. I'll show you why. So on my watercolor paper, I'm going to have it vertical or hot dog style. Right in front of me on a clean, flat surface. So we're going to make an ocean scene, and we're going to make a bunch of different bubbles. To make the bubbles, we'll use our round objects just to trace. That way we get a bunch of different sized circles. So my first step is to trace these objects on the top 2/3 of the paper. They can be anywhere you want. Just arrange them all over the page and try and do an even number of those different sizes. So I'll go ahead and get started with that. Alright, so I've got about 7 bubbles on here. You can do as many as will fit, but you want to leave room at the bottom to draw a fish. So let's draw a fish. I'm going to start with the shape of the body, and I'll do this step by step so you guys can see how I'm doing it. At any time though, feel free to change it up and make your fish your own. So just in this bottom section that I left here, I'm going to draw a large teardrop shape sideways. This is our fish's body, with this round part being his head. So he needs a tail, and that's going to be just a fun shape over here that's kind of whatever shape you want for his fin. This isn't a particular kind of fish, it's just a made-up fish. So he needs a fin on his top, and he needs a 2 fins on his side. We'll only be able to see one fin because it's from the side. So I'll do a little line there. I'm going to take my eraser, so I erase where his body goes through the fin. There's a fin on the other side, but we can see just a tiny bit of it where it shows through on his bottom. Alright, so we've got 3 fins, tail fin, and now we need to do his face. So feel free to make him your own. He's going to have a smile, line for his gills, and I'm going to do 2 kind of large bubble-shaped eyes. Alright, so now we can imagine that we've got a fish blowing a bunch of different bubbles. So the technique we're going to learn today is how to use watercolors in 3 different ways. We are going to use the wet on wet method, the wet on dry method, and we're even going to use some salt. So I'm going to use all of these methods to fill in my bubbles. And the first one we're going to do is wet on wet. So choose your large paintbrush. And wet on wet just means that we're going to get our paper wet before we add color. So dipping my brush in the clean water, I will take just the clean water and choose a bubble to fill in with that water. Now I'll choose a color, any one that I want, and dip my paintbrush in it. And now that the paper is wet, I will dip that color into the wet bubble. And you can watch how the watercolor spreads out in the area that was painted wet. In your bubbles, you can choose several colors to fill it in. And watch how those colors blend together as you dip it into the wet paper. When I switch colors, I always want to wash my brush out in between, just so I don't get the watercolor pan all muddy. Alright, so my bubbles are painted. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of the salt and sprinkle it on there. If you have a salt shaker, that'd be easier, but I just have it in my hand. I'm going to take a small pinch, sprinkle it on there. You can see immediately how the salt soaks up the paint and leaves like this really cool sprinkled technique on the paint. It'll dry. As the watercolor dries, the salt, you can just brush it off later, but it'll leave that cool pattern. Alright, last thing to do is paint our fish and the water. I'm going to wait until the bubbles dry to paint the water, because as they are right now, they would just blend together. So let your bubbles dry and then go ahead and paint your background and your fish. Right. So we're back on painting our background. Now that the bubbles have mostly dried, it'll be easier to do the background without them all blending together. All I'm going to do for the background is pick blues and purples to blend over the background. Use my large brush and a little bit extra water so that the color spreads out more easily. Have fun blending your colors together in the background, just like you did on the bubbles. You can use your paintbrush to go around the bubbles, leaving a little bit of white space in between so that they stand out a little more. Lots of purple, areas with lots of blue. They can be brighter or darker. Remember that with watercolor, the colors are lighter if you add more water, and then if you want them to be more intense, just mix your brush and the paint for a little bit longer so that you've got a more intense color. Alright, so we're done with the background, and hopefully you had really fun with this lesson using your watercolor in all the different ways that we learned, and had fun making great color combinations and making a cool fish. So thanks for watching.